Life often feels like a race against time. We wake up before sunrise, go to bed long after midnight, fill our days with endless tasks, and still feel as though something essential is missing. The modern world celebrates this culture of exhaustion, teaching us that the harder we push, the more we hustle, the more successful we will become. But deep inside, many discover a frustrating truth. Relentless effort does not guarantee lasting success. Psalm 127 begins with a powerful statement that shatters this illusion. Unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain. Unless the Lord watches over the city, the guards stand watch in vain. This verse is not poetry meant for decoration. It is a timeless principle that reveals the futility of effort without divine direction. You can work endlessly, sacrifice your health, and give everything you have to your dreams. But if God is not at the center of what you are building, your work is fragile. It may rise for a time, but it will eventually collapse. Our culture glorifies hustle. We are told wake up earlier, work harder, never stop, and eventually success will come. While discipline and diligence are important, Psalm 127 reminds us of a deeper truth. What truly matters is the foundation on which we build. Imagine pouring all your energy into constructing a tall building, only to realize later that it was built on unstable sand. It looks impressive from the outside, but the first storm reduces it to ruins. That is the picture of a life built solely on human ambition, fear, or vanity. The effort is real, but the foundation is weak. You can put together thousands of puzzle pieces, but if you never look at the picture on the box, the process becomes endless confusion. You may row with all your strength, but if you row in the wrong direction, your effort takes you further away from the destination. The problem is not effort itself. The problem is effort without direction. Psalm 127 continues with another striking image. In vain you rise early and stay up late, toiling for food to eat, for he grants sleep to those he loves. This is the description of what we might call the bread of sorrows. It is the bread earned with sweat, anxiety, and constant struggle. Yes, it fills the stomach, but it drains the soul. It is the bread of those who gain a paycheck but lose their peace, who build a career but sacrifice their family, who succeed in appearances but feel empty inside. Many people live like this, running faster, doing more, chasing goals tirelessly. At the end of the day, they collapse into bed exhausted, only to wake up and repeat the same cycle. It is like running on a treadmill, movement without progress. The bread of sorrows is not about lack of effort. It is about misplaced trust. What makes Psalm 127 so extraordinary is that it doesn't just warn, it also promises. The warning is clear. If God is not the builder, our work is in vain. But the promise is just as strong. When the Lord builds, nothing can destroy what he has established. This changes everything. It teaches us that success is not the reward of endless striving, but the fruit of alignment with God's design. The real question is not, how hard am I working? The real question is, with whom am I building? Centuries after Solomon wrote Psalm 127, the author Napoleon Hill spent more than 20 years studying some of the most successful people of his time. He wanted to know the secret behind their accomplishments. His conclusion was simple yet profound. There is no enduring success without a definite purpose. Hill also spoke of what he called the infinite intelligence, a higher power with which human beings can connect through faith, clarity of desire, and persistence. He discovered that when people defined their purpose clearly and acted with determination, this invisible force seemed to cooperate with them, opening doors and aligning circumstances. In biblical terms, what Hill described is nothing other than the reality that God is the true architect of lasting success. The Bible calls him Lord. Hill called it infinite intelligence. But the principle is the same. Success disconnected from divine purpose is fragile, but success aligned with God's plan is unshakable. We see the contrast every day. Some build their lives on vanity. They chase recognition, approval, or the need to prove themselves. Their houses look beautiful, but storms reveal their fragility. Others build on fear, fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of scarcity. Their work is driven, but it is unstable, and anxiety becomes their constant companion. But those who build on God's foundation construct differently. They may not always be the fastest or the most visible. Their progress may look slower from the outside, yet their work is steady, firm, and lasting. When storms come, and they always do, their houses remain standing. Why? Because the strength of a structure lies in the depth of its foundation. Think of the entrepreneur who achieves wealth but loses peace, or the professional who climbs the corporate ladder but has no meaningful relationships, or the influencer admired by thousands online but broken and lonely in private. These are lives built with effort but without alignment. They are castles of cards, fragile, temporary, destined to collapse. On the other hand, consider the parent who invests in raising children with faith and values, or the worker who dedicates time to family and spiritual growth alongside career, or the leader who uses influence to serve rather than dominate. These may not always receive applause from the world, but their houses stand firm. They are constructions on rock, built with God as the architect. The heart of this message is an invitation. Stop measuring life by how hard you work, and start measuring it by what foundation you are building on. Ask yourself, why am I doing what I do? Is my work driven by ego, fear, or comparison? Or is it rooted in divine purpose and eternal direction? Your answers to these questions determine whether your effort produces fruit or frustration. Because the difference between a life that collapses and a life that endures is not the amount of work, it is the foundation beneath it. Psalm 127 is not an encouragement to laziness or passivity. On the contrary, it is a call to conscious building. It tells us that success is not about running faster, but about building wiser. That the question is not how much am I doing, but am I aligned with the master architect? The truth is simple. Effort without God leads to exhaustion and emptiness. Effort with God leads to stability and peace. One path ends in the bread of sorrows. The other ends in the bread of blessing. So today, pause for a moment and ask yourself, what am I building? And more importantly, with whom am I building it? Because when God is the builder, nothing can bring the house down. Every structure depends on its foundation. You can decorate the walls, install the best windows, and build high ceilings. But if the base is weak, the entire house is at risk. This principle applies not only to architecture, but also to life. Many people dedicate years of their existence to building careers, businesses, relationships, or dreams, only to see them collapse in a moment. The problem is often not the effort, but the foundation. Psalm 127 reminds us that if God is not the builder, if He is not the foundation, the work is fragile and temporary. The right foundation for life is not ambition, pride, or fear. These forces may motivate you for a while, but they cannot sustain you. Ambition without purpose turns into obsession. Pride without humility leads to destruction. Fear without faith produces anxiety and paralysis. These are like sand foundations. They look solid for a time, but the first storm proves otherwise. The only foundation capable of sustaining a full, stable, and lasting life is divine purpose. When God is at the center, the house stands firm. Napoleon Hill spent decades studying people who achieved visible success. He concluded that all those who reached lasting accomplishments had one thing in common: a definite purpose. Without purpose, effort is scattered. With purpose, effort is focused and fruitful. Purpose acts like a compass that gives direction to every action, every plan, every sacrifice. But the Bible adds something deeper. Purpose alone is not enough unless it is aligned with God's design. A defined purpose disconnected from the divine plan can still collapse. The safest path is to allow God to define the blueprint and then dedicate our effort to follow it. There is a big difference between building from fear and building from faith. Those who build from fear are constantly anxious. They work to avoid failure, to avoid rejection, to avoid scarcity. Fear becomes their foundation, and it is exhausting. Their decisions are reactive, driven by insecurity. On the other hand, those who build from faith act with confidence. They know they are not alone. Their decisions may not always be easy, but they are guided by clarity. Faith dissolves anxiety because it reminds you that God is in control. Purpose aligned with God also changes the way you face challenges. When difficulties come, those who build on human motives often feel lost, as though everything is falling apart. But those who know their foundation is divine understand that storms are part of the process. They may tremble, but they do not collapse. Their confidence is not in their own strength, but in the architect who designed the plan. That difference gives them resilience. The right foundation also transforms how you measure progress. Many people measure success by speed, how quickly they reach a goal, how fast they accumulate wealth, how soon they get recognition. But when you build with God, the measure is not speed but alignment. Even if the process is slow, you can be at peace knowing that each step is guided by the right direction. It is better to walk slowly on rock than to run fast on sand. Think of two farmers. One works double, always in a rush, sowing seeds in any soil, without checking if the ground is fertile. He works tirelessly but harvests little. The other farmer works with patience, studies the land, chooses the right moment, and sows with care. He may not sow as much, but his harvest is abundant. The difference is not only in the effort, but in the wisdom of the foundation. In the same way, some people exhaust themselves working, but because they do not check the foundation, their results are fragile. Others, with less visible effort, achieve lasting abundance because they chose the right ground. The modern world teaches that if you work hard enough, you can achieve anything. But Scripture corrects this. Effort without direction is like chasing the wind. You run, you sweat, you get tired, but you catch nothing. Divine wisdom teaches that effort must be aligned with heaven. Otherwise, you will feel like you are moving, but never advancing. Many people live in that cycle, always busy, always tired, but always empty. The problem is not lack of work, but lack of foundation. The right foundation is also a safeguard against comparison. Many people make decisions based on what others are doing. They choose careers, buy houses, or even start businesses not because it is their purpose, but because they want to prove themselves. But comparison is a weak base. When storms come, those decisions collapse. On the contrary, when your base is divine purpose, you do not need to compare yourself. You walk with peace, knowing your path is unique and guided by God. Another fruit of the right foundation is clarity. Anxiety is often born of confusion. When you do not know where you are going, every decision feels overwhelming. But when the foundation is firm, the vision is clear. You may not know all the details, but you know the direction, and that clarity calms the heart. It is like walking at night with a flashlight. You may not see the entire path, but you see enough to keep walking with confidence. Imagine an architect who starts building without a plan. He improvises, adds walls randomly, and constructs without measuring. At first it may look like progress, but soon the structure becomes unstable. That is how many live their lives, improvising without a foundation. But when you have a plan designed by the master architect, every brick has meaning. Every sacrifice has direction. Every effort is an investment that builds something lasting. The right foundation is not a guarantee that everything will be easy. Storms will still come. Challenges will still arise. But the difference is that what is built on God does not collapse. The storm may hit, but the house stands. The wind may blow, but the foundation holds. That security gives peace in the middle of difficulties. You no longer fear the storm because you trust the strength of the rock. Purpose also protects you from despair when results take time. Many people give up because they expect immediate fruit. They sow today and want to harvest tomorrow. When nothing happens, they feel frustrated. But when you know your foundation is divine, you understand that every process has a time. You trust that what you sow in faith will produce fruit at the right season. That trust allows you to persevere with patience. The difference between an unstable life and a stable life is not the absence of effort, but the quality of the foundation. Two people may work equally hard, but if one builds on fear and the other on faith, the results will be completely different. One ends up exhausted and empty. The other builds something that lasts. The foundation you choose also determines the kind of legacy you leave. A life built on pride may leave trophies but not inspiration. A life built on ambition may leave riches but not values. A life built on fear may leave protection but not confidence. Only a life built on God leaves a legacy of peace, wisdom, and faith. That is why the right foundation is not optional. It is essential. Psalm 127 teaches us that building without God is in vain. No matter how much effort we invest, but when God is the builder, even the smallest effort produces fruit that endures. That is the power of the right foundation. So today, examine the base of your life. Ask yourself, on what am I building? Is it on ambition, pride, fear, or comparison? Or is it on faith, wisdom, and divine purpose? Because the storms of life will come, and only what is built on the right foundation will remain. We live in a culture that glorifies exhaustion. People take pride in how little they sleep, how busy their schedules are, and how much they sacrifice rest for productivity. Being tired has become a badge of honor, as though exhaustion is proof of value. But Psalm 127 confronts this idea directly and powerfully. It says, "In vain you rise early and stay up late, toiling for food to eat, for he grants sleep to those he loves." In this single sentence, the myth of the modern world collapses. Relentless effort does not guarantee blessing. Hard work without peace is vanity. What matters is not only how much you work, but also whether God is involved in your work. The world says, if you do not do it, no one will. Scripture says, if God does not build, your effort is wasted. The world says, the more hours you work, the more successful you will be. Scripture says, to his beloved he gives, even in their sleep. What a radical truth. This is not a call to laziness or passivity. It is a call to trust, to faith in action, to the recognition that success is not only the fruit of effort, but also of alignment with God. Active faith is different from passivity. It means working diligently, doing your part with excellence, but then resting with confidence that God will continue the work even when you are not. Rest becomes an act of faith. It is saying, I have done my part, now I trust God to do His. Many people work tirelessly but never rest because they think everything depends on them. This produces anxiety, stress, and emotional fatigue. But those who trust in God understand that their responsibility is to build with faith, not to control everything. Napoleon Hill spoke about the power of the subconscious mind. He explained that when you define a clear goal, emotionally charged with faith, your subconscious continues working on it even while you sleep. Ideas, solutions, and inspirations emerge as though from nowhere. Hill called this cooperation with infinite intelligence. The Bible declared it long before God gives to His beloved even while they sleep. The principle is the same. Rest with faith activates invisible processes that go beyond your human effort. Imagine a farmer who plants seeds and then digs them up every day to see if they are growing. His impatience destroys the harvest. In contrast, a wise farmer plants, waters, and then trusts the natural process. He knows the earth is working even when he cannot see it. He rests, and at the right time, the fruit appears. That is how active faith works. You sow with diligence, you care for the seed, and then you rest, trusting that God is working in ways you cannot see. Rest with faith does not mean inactivity. It means learning balance. It means knowing when to work and when to stop. It means doing your best and then letting God complete what you cannot. Many people confuse movement with progress. They think that being constantly busy means they are advancing, but often they are only running in circles. Rest is not wasted time. Rest aligned with God is productive because it allows your mind, your body, and your spirit to renew. It also creates space for divine intervention. Many breakthroughs in history have come during rest. Inventors, artists, and leaders have testified that their best ideas came while they were relaxed, walking, or even sleeping. The human mind is limited when under stress, but when it rests, it opens to creativity and inspiration. Spiritually, this is even more powerful. When you rest with faith, you declare that God is greater than your effort, that His wisdom surpasses your own, and that His timing is perfect. Psalm 127 reveals that exhaustion is not a badge of honor, but a sign of misaligned priorities. Rising early and going to bed late is not the problem in itself. The problem is when this is driven by anxiety, fear, or the illusion of control. That is when effort becomes vanity and produces the bread of sorrows. Bread earned with stress, without peace, without joy, ends up being bitter. True blessing is not only to earn, but to enjoy what you earn, to eat bread with peace, not with sorrow. Think of how many people have money but no peace, positions but no joy, recognition but no health. They eat bread of sorrow because their effort is disconnected from purpose and from God. On the other hand, there are those who may not accumulate as much but enjoy peace, sleep with confidence, and see doors open without explanation. The difference is not in how much they work, but in how much they trust. Rest with faith also transforms the way you see time. Many are slaves to the clock, feeling that they never have enough hours. But when you align with God, you discover that His blessing makes time fruitful. What others achieve with endless struggle, you can achieve with less effort, because grace multiplies your results. This is not magic. It is divine principle. Work with purpose, rest with faith, and God adds what effort alone cannot. Active faith requires humility. It means admitting that you cannot control everything, that you need God's hand to guide the process. Many resist this because they want to feel in control, but that illusion of control is heavy and exhausting. When you surrender, you discover peace. Rest becomes an act of courage. Only those who trust dare to rest. Only those who believe in divine direction can close their eyes without fear. Napoleon Hill taught that when a desire is defined and given to the subconscious with faith, the subconscious works day and night. Many of the greatest ideas, he said, appear during sleep. In spiritual terms, this is the manifestation of the truth that God is working while you rest. Your obedience activates the process, your faith sustains it, and your rest allows God to complete it. This principle also teaches you to value balance. Work is sacred when done with purpose. Rest is sacred when done with faith. Both are necessary. Without work, there is no sowing. Without rest, there is no harvest. Exhaustion without purpose produces frustration. Rest without responsibility produces laziness. But work with purpose and rest with faith produce fruit that endures. Imagine two builders. One works day and night, without stopping, trying to finish the house faster. He gets tired, makes mistakes, and weakens the structure. The other works with discipline during the day, rests at night, and returns renewed. His progress may look slower, but his house is strong. When storms come, the first collapses, the second remains. The difference is not effort, but wisdom in effort. God designed rest as part of the rhythm of life. He created day and night, work and Sabbath, activity and pause. Ignoring this rhythm leads to exhaustion. Respecting it brings peace. Rest is not wasted time, it is divine design. Those who embrace it discover that life flows with more balance and clarity. Psalm 127 shows us that success without rest is not true success. What good is it to achieve goals if you lose your peace? What good is it to accumulate wealth if you lose your health? What good is it to reach the top if you collapse inside? True prosperity includes rest, peace, and joy. It is not only about having but about being. It is not only about achieving but also about enjoying. So learn to rest with faith. Do your part with excellence. Sow with diligence, and then rest with confidence. Trust that God is working even when you cannot see. Believe that while you sleep, He is aligning people, circumstances, and opportunities. Allow your rest to be worship, a declaration that He is greater than your effort. The message is simple but profound. Work with purpose, rest with faith, and trust in divine timing. Because in the end, what sustains your house is not your endless effort, but the blessing of the Lord, who builds with you. Life is not only about what you achieve, but also about what you leave behind. Psalm 127 shifts its tone when it says, "Children are a heritage from the Lord, offspring a reward from Him." After speaking about work, effort, and rest, it introduces the idea of legacy. The message is clear. True success is not measured by possessions or accomplishments, but by the inheritance you leave for those who come after you. Legacy is not optional. It is essential. The world often measures success by what you accumulate. How much money do you have? What titles have you earned? What positions have you reached? But Scripture reveals a higher measure. What values did you plant? What people did you form? What example did you give? This is legacy. Napoleon Hill also recognized this truth. He observed that the most successful people were not only those who achieved goals for themselves, but those who influenced others, leaving a mark that lasted beyond their own lives. Legacy begins at home. The first environment that shapes a person is the family. Hill emphasized that the environment in which someone grows molds their mindset. A home filled with stress, criticism, and instability produces insecure adults. A home filled with faith, respect, and love produces leaders with confidence and strength. That is why the psalm connects legacy with children. Children are not only physical descendants, they represent the fruit of what you build. Legacy is transmitted not with speeches but with daily actions. Think of a parent who teaches integrity not with words but by living honestly. Or a leader who inspires not by imposing but by serving. Or a teacher who shapes students not just with knowledge but with example. These people are building legacy. They are forming lives that will continue multiplying their influence. Legacy is not something you write in a legal document. It is something you imprint in hearts. Psalm 127 compares children to arrows in the hands of a warrior. This is a powerful image. An arrow has potential, but if it is not shaped, it cannot fly. If it is not aimed, it will miss its target. If it is not released, it will never fulfill its purpose. In the same way, those entrusted to us, children, students, disciples, employees, need formation, direction, and release. Legacy is not about control but about preparation. It is not about keeping arrows as decorations, but about sending them toward their purpose. Many people make the mistake of clinging to what they form. They want to control their children, their team, or their followers. But legacy requires courage to let go, to prepare, to aim, and then to release. That release is an act of faith. It is trusting that what you sowed will bear fruit in the right time and place. It is believing that the investment in values, principles, and love will remain even when you are no longer present. Napoleon Hill insisted that habits formed in youth shape destiny. Early influences define beliefs, self-esteem, and vision of life. That is why arrows must be shaped while they are young. Correction, guidance, and patience are necessary. A crooked arrow cannot reach the target. In the same way, a life without formation struggles to fulfill its potential. Legacy requires effort and time, but the result is generations prepared to face the future. True legacy also goes beyond biological children. It includes all the people touched by your influence. Students you mentored, employees you guided, friends you supported, communities you served. Every word of encouragement, every act of service, every principle taught contributes to a legacy that multiplies. Sometimes the greatest impact is not in people you know personally, but in those influenced indirectly by your actions. Think of leaders whose words continue to inspire long after their death. Think of parents whose values continue through grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Think of teachers whose lessons shape professionals who later changed the world. That is legacy. It is influence that transcends time. It is the echo of your life resounding in future generations. The psalm describes children as a reward, reminding us that legacy is not a burden but a blessing. Leaving a mark is not about pressure, but about privilege. You have the opportunity to shape lives, to guide destinies, to contribute to something greater than yourself. That is the reward. To see others rise because of your influence. Legacy also redefines success. Many people spend their lives chasing recognition, only to discover in the end that applause fades. What remains is what they sowed in others. Trophies gather dust, money disappears, but values endure. True glory is not the one applauded by the world, but the one inherited by generations. The psalm calls children a heritage from the Lord. A heritage is something you protect, prepare, and then deliver. Legacy requires daily decisions. Every choice, every action, every example contributes to what you leave. Napoleon Hill emphasized that success must be sustainable. If it dies with you, it is not real success. Real success is that which continues multiplying after you are gone. That is why many of the most admired leaders in history are remembered, not for what they achieved for themselves, but for what they inspired in others. Legacy transforms ambition into mission. It changes the focus from how far I go to how many I help rise. Psalm 127 shows that children are like arrows in the hands of a warrior. The warrior does not keep arrows as trophies. He forms them, sharpens them, and releases them toward the target. In the same way, your role is to shape, aim, and release lives toward their purpose. Legacy is an active responsibility. It demands time, correction, and vision. Many want to see results without investing in formation. But without shaping, arrows cannot fly. Without direction, arrows miss the target. Without release, arrows never fulfill their mission. The world desperately needs leaders with vision, parents with purpose, mentors with conviction. If you do not shape the next generation, the world will, and the world lacks mercy. That is why legacy is urgent. It is not something to postpone. It is something to live every day. Every action is forming arrows. Every word is aiming them. Every decision is preparing them for release. Legacy also requires humility. It means accepting that the impact of your life is measured not only by what you achieve, but by what others achieve through you. It is realizing that your role is not only to shine, but to ignite others. That is true greatness. A leader is not the one who gathers followers, but the one who forms leaders. A parent is not the one who controls children, but the one who prepares them for their mission. The psalm reminds us that arrows are a blessing. They are not weight, they are potential. Your children, your students, your team, your community, each represents potential waiting to be shaped and released. See them not as a burden, but as an opportunity to extend your influence beyond your own time. At the end of life, what will remain is not the wealth accumulated, but the legacy you left. People may forget your titles, but they will not forget how you made them feel, how you inspired them, how you guided them. That is immortality. Your attitudes, your teachings, your example will continue speaking, even when you are silent. Legacy is a seed that grows into trees under whose shade you may never sit, but others will. And that is true success. To plant seeds that give fruit beyond your own lifetime. To prepare arrows that hit targets you may never see. To build a heritage that glorifies God long after you are gone. So today ask yourself, what legacy am I leaving? Am I sowing values or only chasing possessions? Am I shaping arrows or only keeping trophies? Am I building for myself or for future generations? Because true success is not measured by what you took, but by what you gave. It is not measured by how high you rose, but by how many you lifted with you. It is not measured by applause, but by inheritance. Psalm 127 teaches that children are a heritage from the Lord, a reward, a blessing. Legacy is not optional. It is essential. Build with purpose, sow with vision, and release with faith. Because when you leave a legacy aligned with God, your influence becomes eternal. Psalm 127 is not just a poem to recite. It is a map for building a life that lasts. From beginning to end, it delivers eternal principles that remain relevant across cultures and generations. It starts with a warning. If God does not build the house, the builders labor in vain. It continues with a promise to His beloved He gives rest. It reveals the value of legacy. Children are a heritage from the Lord, arrows in the hands of a warrior. And it closes by reminding us that the true measure of success is not in effort alone, but in alignment with divine purpose. In this chapter, we can identify 5 eternal principles for a truly prosperous life. The first principle is divine direction. Every construction needs a foundation. and the only solid foundation is God Himself. Building without Him, no matter how impressive the results may look at first, is like constructing on sand. The world may admire the facade, but storms will reveal the weakness. Divine direction is not a privilege for a few, but an invitation for all. It requires humility to recognize that human wisdom is limited, and that the true blueprint comes from heaven. To seek divine direction is to align thought, plan, and action with the will of God. The second principle is purposeful effort. Effort by itself does not guarantee results. Many people exhaust themselves working but see little fruit because their effort lacks direction. Purpose transforms effort into productivity. Purpose turns repetition into mission. Purpose organizes energy and multiplies results. Napoleon Hill emphasized that success without definite purpose does not last. The Bible confirms that purpose without God is still fragile. Purposeful effort means not just working hard, but working aligned with heaven. It is sowing in fertile ground, in the right season, with the right intention. The third principle is active faith. This principle teaches that blessing is not limited to what you can see or do. God works even while you rest. The psalm declares that He gives to His beloved even in their sleep. This means that while you trust, He acts. While you release control, He aligns circumstances. Active faith is not passivity. It is not laziness. It is working with diligence and then resting with confidence. It is planting with care and then allowing God to make the seed grow. It is living in peace, knowing that blessing depends more on grace than on exhaustion. The fourth principle is real legacy. What you accumulate will fade, but what you sow in others will endure. Psalm 127 calls children a heritage, a reward, a blessing. Legacy is not measured in possessions but in people. It is the impact you leave on the lives of others. It is the arrows you shape, aim, and release toward their destiny. It is the values you instill, the examples you give, the lives you inspire. Legacy is immortality through influence. It is knowing that when you are gone, your principles, your faith, and your love will continue speaking. The fifth principle is conscious leadership. Every arrow needs to be shaped, aimed, and released. That requires vision, patience, and courage. Leadership is not control but influence. It is not domination but inspiration. Conscious leadership forms lives instead of deforming them, guides with wisdom instead of impulse, and prepares others instead of clinging to them. It is recognizing that your responsibility is not only to live well but to guide others to live with purpose. Conscious leadership leaves marks that endure in families, communities, and generations. These 5 principles are the essence of Psalm 127. Divine direction reminds you that God must be the foundation. Purposeful effort teaches you that it is not only how much you work, but where and why you work. Active faith shows you that God multiplies your effort, even in rest. Real legacy teaches you that the true measure of success is what you leave in others. Conscious leadership challenges you to form and release lives toward their mission. Together, these principles form a complete guide for building a life that is strong, meaningful, and eternal. Napoleon Hill discovered through his studies that success has patterns. Those who achieved it had clear purpose, faith, and persistence. But Psalm 127 takes it further, teaching that these elements only reach their fullness when aligned with God. Purpose without God can become obsession. Faith without God can become superstition. Leadership without God can become pride. But when all align with the divine plan, they produce stability, peace, and abundance. At the end of your life, you will not be remembered for what you owned, but for what you built in others. You will not be remembered for the hours you worked, but for the values you instilled. You will not be remembered for the applause you received, but for the legacy you left. Psalm 127 invites you to stop running without direction, to stop building without foundation, to stop exhausting yourself without peace, and instead to start constructing with faith, vision, and eternal purpose. This message is not just theory. It is an invitation to live differently. It is an invitation to trust more, to fear less, to rest with confidence, to sow with intention, and to lead with love. It is an invitation to stop eating the bread of sorrow and to start enjoying the bread of blessing. It is an invitation to stop building castles of sand and to start building fortresses on rock. It is an invitation to change anxiety for faith, noise for wisdom, and rush for purpose. Psalm 127 is a call to stop living in circles and to start walking on a straight path. It is a reminder that without God, everything collapses, but with God, everything endures. It is a map for building a life that not only stands in the storm, but also leaves a legacy that multiplies for generations. Because when the Lord builds the house, nothing and no one can destroy it. Prompt para la imagen del video. Prompt: a highly detailed and realistic portrait of Napoleon Hill, presented with a calm, wise, and inspiring expression. The background shows a symbolic scene of strength and purpose, a radiant sunrise over mountains, symbolizing faith, direction, and divine foundation. The style is cinematic, warm lighting, soft golden tones, professional composition, modern inspirational poster design, high resolution. The mood should evoke wisdom, stability, and spiritual guidance. Perfect for a motivational YouTube channel.